Hi. When it comes to investment, I tell people to keep it simple. So simple that they can explain it to their grandmothers so that even they can understand it. There was this a funny episode on Seinfeld. Seinfeld is this comedy show that aired in the United States in the 90s, and I'm sure many of you have seen it since their reruns seem to be on just about everywhere in the world. There was this one particular episode that I really liked, and it had to do with investment, a stock, purchasing a stock. So there are these two friends, George and Jerry. George, his name is George Costanza, and Jerry is Jerry Seinfeld. So George has been tracking this one stock, and the stock has been going up. And George is telling Jerry, "Hey Jerry, perhaps you should get into this action here because you might be missing out on making some money here." And Jerry's like, George, investment is not my thing. I'd rather keep my money in the bank." But George is persistent. He keeps showing Jerry, "Hey Jerry, listen, look, the stock went up again. You are missing a big opportunity here." Jerry's like, maybe I should look into it. Well, eventually, Jerry decides to purchase that stock. And right after he purchased that stock, it starts going down. And Jerry's like, "Hey, what's going on? I thought this stock was supposed to go up." That's what his friend George told him. He calls his stockbroker and he says, "Jerry," the stockbroker tells Jerry, "Don't worry, these things happen. It's just a temporary blip. It'll come back up again, and you'll be fine." Jerry's like, "Okay, they must know more. Okay, I'll take their word." But he's still tracking the stock, and he notices that it's going lower. And again, Jerry calls the stockbroker, and everybody's like, "What's going on here?" And nobody's able to explain to him what's happening with the stock, why it keeps dropping. Well, finally, Jerry's had enough, and he just sells the stock. And at the end of the show, he has the stand-up comedy routine, and he comes up with the lesson that he learned from this purchasing the stock. And he says, "Listen, I learned a very valuable lesson from this investment lesson. That from now on, I'll do the work, and I'll let my money relax. Because I learned that when my money's working, it tends to get fired." Now, that's a funny episode, but there's a lot of truth behind that. And whenever I'm having a discussion, normally happens when there's a party or something, everybody's got this exotic investment idea, like, "Oh, I'm using options. Oh, I'm using this, purchasing these stocks and that stock, this industry, 3D, internet, social media, whatever." And when they're talking about it, obviously the stocks have done well, otherwise they wouldn't be talking about it. And they all have this advice, and I tell them, "Look, all those advice are fine, but I don't have time for this. I'd rather just put it into the index fund, whether it's economy that it's tracking or a particular industry sector that it's tracking, whether it's technology, energy, utilities, manufacturing, or the common one is the S&P 500 index." Now, what the S&P 500 index is that it's a basket that consists of the top 500 publicly traded companies in the United States based on its weight, and from that it creates an index, and you purchase that whole thing as a single stock, okay, if that makes sense. And when you purchase that, you're kind of tracking the economy of the United States because you've got 500 top companies that are in this basket. Okay, so What this does is that you buy this and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to track it every day. Maybe track it periodically, maybe every 3 months or 6 months, but you don't have to track it on a daily basis. I find this simple. I buy the S&P 500 index and that's it. I'm done. The reason I bring this up is that up till 1952, people didn't have any kind of a theory when it came to investment. People bought individual stocks, and sometimes these stocks basically did poorly and they lost a lot of money. So in 1952, there was a young economist named Harry Markowitz, very famous name. He won a Nobel Prize for this theory that is commonly known as the modern portfolio theory. And what this theory's main objective is to maximize the return and minimize the risk. The concept is very simple, but to get there, it's a highly mathematical concept where you have to track, where you have to look at the historical trends, the correlation in pricing and risk analysis and all that. It's a 17-page paper, but it's highly mathematical. And this is what, obviously, we don't do the math. The math is now done by some complicated programs. But that's how, when you go see a fund man or investment advisor, most likely they'll be looking at, they'll be using a program that kind of is based on this MPT theory, based on your age and your risk level, etc. And it'll come up with a portfolio whose idea at the end is the same: maximize return and minimize risk. And that's the MPT. Now, this is a theory that is widely used when it comes to making an investment. So somebody did a study and said, let's track that, which is fairly complex because you have to track so many things based on your age, your preference, all the different correlations that you have to do. And compare that to something that's much simpler, that's been used since the Babylonian Talmudic times. That at that time it recommended that if you want to make an investment, the best way to do it is divide it equally, which we commonly call it the 1 over n. N is the number of investments theory, 1 over n theory. And when this study compared the two, they found that 1 over n outperforms MPT in some cases by 79%. That's pretty significant, that the simple theory is outperforming something that's fairly complex. The interesting thing about this is that at one time a financial journalist was interviewing Harry Markowitz when he was working at Rand Corporation, and he was just kind of curious and he wanted to know how Markowitz made his investment. And he said, I keep it very simple. I just basically equally divide it among stocks and bonds. So even Harry Markowitz is using the 1 over n. And here's a guy who won the Nobel Prize in economics for this modern portfolio theory. So when it comes to investment, I like to keep it simple because I don't have the time, the knowledge, or the patience to track these investments on a daily basis, hourly or daily basis, looking at the ticker. Oh, did it go up? Did it go down? Just put it in an index fund and just relax. Let that do the work for you, and you can relax. Good luck.